Making Waves, episode 45. Welcome, everyone. This is a wonderful evening here on this Wednesday, the 26th of May. And we're super stoked because we have, the guitarist for our ShipRocked 2022 headliner, Lamb of God. Please welcome Mark Morton. Mark, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, this has been a thrill. When we announced this one, we got hit with a lot of people. Obviously, a lot of metalheads, a lot of people out there in the metal world. We're stoked to be hearing about this episode, so they're going to chime in and give it a listen. So we're going to have a lot of ears and eyes on this one. So we appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and we know you've you're a new father again. So congratulations. So again,
Thank you.
thank you for your time.
No, it's
But
my pleasure. Yeah, exciting days for sure.
yeah, absolutely. And exciting days going along as 2021 is kind of starting to unfold for people. And you guys have a tour coming up that's a big co-headlining tour in the fall that we'll get to. But first thing we want to talk about is some of your solo work. Ether was 2020, came out really, was it 2020, right?
Yeah, it was released in
Yeah.
January of 2020. Yeah.
Yeah, right there before the wheels kind of came off. But it's really interesting departure from what people really do expect from you as far as what you're noted for.
Yeah, I think that was sort of the point, Ether, and then I did a year before in 2019 I did a full-length LP called Anesthetic as a solo artist as well. So it's Ether it came out sort of right before the COVID thing took off, and I was able to do a small tour of the UK, like an acoustic tour in support of Ether. So that was I felt really fortunate in hindsight that I was able to get that in, right before everything kind of locked down. But yeah, I think, for me, the point of the solo stuff really is to stretch out a bit. I have always, for better or worse, considered myself kind of a blues rock guitar player that just happens to be in a thrash metal band.
Right.
So I think that's a wonderful place to be, and again, I'm grateful to have that spot. But it has at times left me kind of yearning to stretch out and get outside of the box a little bit, outside of the lane of Lamb of God. So a few years back, I started working on some solo stuff that was a little more rock oriented, um, a, a little more straightforward rock, a little less heavy metal. And Anesthetic, the LP, was the first project of that. We had a big song on that record with Chester Bennington, the late great Chester Bennington. We had a song called Cross Off. That was a pretty big song. And then I followed that up the next year with the Ether EP that you're talking about, which was more acoustic based.
Yeah, I was going to ask. It tends that these things would be some way to kind of stretch your legs, kind of give people a look at somewhat of your influences and the stuff that you do away from here. But let's go back to Anesthetic real quick. You pull some performances out of people. Notably to me, when I listen to the record, is what you got out of Josh Todd.
Right. That
That
song
sounds
turned
like an
out
outlier, but
great,
it's like,
man.
man, he went full metal thrash vocal, and I was like, and at first I listened to it like 3 or 4 times, like, who's singing? And I went, Josh Todd. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, so again, they were kind of coming to you going, hey, help me step outside my box for a moment and let me be on this record.
Josh
How
was
did that
one
all
of
come together?
Yeah, Josh was one of the first ones that kind of, got on the roster. And I really did that record in terms of, sort of pairing the song to the vocalist pretty consistently top to bottom, which was my producer, Josh Wilbur, and I were kind of pre-producing the record and writing the songs and putting together demos. And there were a lot of the songs that I wrote lyrics for. So I was like just doing a vocal demo. I sang one song on the album, but that's on the album, but I was singing the demos for a lot of them. And we were listening back just to kind of hear, like, who would we hear on this song? Who do we hear? And that particular song, Back from the Dead, um, it just felt very kind of strutty Los Angeles, very throwback kind of rock feel to it. And Sunset Strippy glory days of, like,
Sure, sure.
attitude rock. A little heavy too, coming with my metal influence, but and I was like, man, I need like a rock star on this song. And Josh Todd's they don't make them like that anymore. There are very few guys that like walk the walk like that. And Josh is one of those guys, and he killed that one. I love that you picked up on that because that's not one of the first few people kind of talk about.
Mm.
It's a bit more of an album track, but I think Josh just crushed that.
Yeah, well, those records like this are always about the kind of the deeper cuts. But the one song you can never escape is the one with Mark Lanigan, because when you have someone that iconic and that voice it's like Nick Cave, right? It
It
just
is,
sticks out.
man. I'm just like such a huge Lanigan fan of pretty much everything he's ever done. On Back to the Screaming Trees. I got to see the Screaming Trees back in the 90s and was a fan of all that stuff. And of course, his work with Queens and his solo work. And the great thing about that situation is Mark and I have become friends. We still keep up. I co-wrote a couple songs on his last album with him. um, Went to his studio and recorded them. So we it's kind of developed a working friendship
Mm.
over the course of that song we did together on Anesthetic. So that's been one of the great byproducts of that. Not to mention I mean, it's easy. I go down the list on that album and like every song, I'm like, well, that's my favorite song on the album. Well, that's my favorite song on the album. But
Sure,
that Lanigan one's really, really special for me.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention, I think I heard this rumor, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but even when you take and look at Cross Off, that sort of like, was that like something that you were working on with Chester like back in 2017 or even earlier? I heard a rumor that it was like something that you were working on, and then it came out after, with this record, but it just had been like a thing that you had to hear, like, oh, we'll see where it kind of works
Well,
in my release pad.
we were working on it. For the project that it was, there was just it was a couple years from the time we worked on it until the time it was released. And unfortunately in that window of time is also when Chester passed. But no, so we had been working on it for my album, and we did work on it together. It was I had an outline of the song musically put together, and I co-wrote some of the lyrics too. I think we had the chorus pretty well in place, and then we had some different ideas for verses. But Chester came into the studio and he had some ideas for the blank spots, and he had some ideas about changing stuff. And that was really, I had talked to Chester, but I didn't know him well. Certainly didn't have any kind of like creative interaction with him at that point. And when he came into the studio, he had ideas ready to go. And we really just he loved the song, which was really why he was there. And instantly, I'm talking within 10-15 minutes of him walking in, we're passing a notebook pass and forth with pencils, like writing ideas and scatting out ideas. And I think there was this instant sort of creative trust that I felt, and I feel pretty safely saying he felt that too. When you write music with someone, it can be, particularly like a song like Cross Off, like lyrically, that's one of the first things we talked about, is sort of where where we're coming from lyrically with our ideas. And we were already pretty much in alignment, very personal stuff. So for you to get that vulnerable with someone that you just met, and then for Chester to be the superstar that he is, and walk in and be able to get vulnerable on that level, it speaks to the kind of guy he was, man. He's just a great dude, a real creative cat, man, like on the level. And I could just talk about that experience on and on, but just to sit behind the board and on the other side of the glass is Chester Bennington, and me and Josh Wilbur, my producer, are just like tracking that song, the vocal for it. And every once in a while I'll get a little note to him, hey, can you flip that like one note, try it one more note up on the scale, just a little note. And Chester just drilling it like on his technical singing ability was jaw-dropping, because no struggling, no like, I don't know, man, I think we should do it. He's willing to try whatever. Cool. Just a real open, creative guy, man. Just a real super artistic guy, man.
Can I ask you both, as musicians, when you guys connect with another like that, like you haven't played with them before, you knew of them, you kind of became friends, you did a song together, what's it like for like me, just the layman term, what's the feeling you get when you realize within 5-10 minutes you've got this connection?
I think for me, I'm so like, when I'm in a work mode, like I sort of get possessed by the song and by the idea. So I don't really have a whole lot of ability or time or mindset to be like, wow, this is cool. That comes later for me because I'm so like, this sounds like real new agey and stuff. But when I have a song, like I'm cooking up and I'm hearing stuff, like even here, like in this at my desk, just doing a little quick demo, don't ask me anything, don't talk to me, because I got to get this down, because I feel like I'm this like antenna. It's not coming from me, you know what I mean? Like I'm just hearing it. And so I really do feel like I'm sort of just lucky enough to be some sort of conduit. So when I'm working with someone like that, particularly in that setting where it was obviously not a bandmate, not, we're not going to get together next week and work on the song some more, we're in the session, right? So we were just both like, just let's dig in. This is great. Cool. Can't wait to, no, don't forget that. Don't forget that. Okay. All right. And then the next part, you know what I mean? And it just gets so, I guess, kind of manic. It's really one of my favorite things about the process of what I get to do is that feeling when all of a sudden you feel this sort of responsibility of the song coming together. And it's my job to nurture it and help it come to life as best I can. And that's what it feels like for me.
I would have to mirror exactly what Mark said. And there's different instances of that, right? I mean, Mark's in his story with Chester, probably most of the vocalists that participated in his releases like this, he's got the time. The production is in his head. He's just got to make sure that like that paintbrush that he's getting to use is actually doing its job on the canvas. And then there's the version of when you're just putzing around doing a co-write or something like that with somebody, and that energy is a completely different version of that energy. At least for me, when I sit in a room and I don't know this person, but they don't know me, and there's no real version of what we came to create that we're expecting to leave with. It matters a lot more about that vibe between you and the other individual. Like it's when it clicks, it feels like stepbrothers, like, do we just become best friends? And then the manic really starts to happen, right? Then you're kind of like, hey, do you remember this and this and this? And then you get off track, but you realize like hour or two had went by and you're just talking about life. And that's the moments that like you really, after that whole conversation happens, then it's like tunnel vision for me at least. And I know that this person is on my team. We're going in the same direction. So. And if you don't get to that moment, Mark probably knows this more than I do. If you don't ever get to that moment, it's like an unspoken thing in that room, like, oh, this is never going to work, but we'll just do our due diligence to move through this motion,
And sometimes there's a middle, I think. Sometimes you can tough it through and it's just a little more, you can come out, I've had sessions with people where on the backside of it, I'm just like, damn, that was like pulling teeth, but it turned out great. You know what I mean? And then there's times when it's just like, damn, like we're done. Like, what, we want to do another one? Like, you know what I mean? So it's certainly I'm fortunate enough to be in situations where it's rarely because someone's not talented enough or good enough or whatever. It's just this kind of chemistry thing, I would imagine it's the same with sports. You can put great players on a team, but sometimes it just doesn't gel. And these are world-class athletes, world-class basketball players and football players. But if for whatever reason, if it's not gelling or clicking, you can have the dream team, but they're not playing together, And so I don't know. I don't know how to plan for it or have a strategy to make it happen. I just know when it happens, like we're saying, I just get that rush of manic creative energy and I'm stoked about it. And then after the fact, it's like, wow, that was killer, man. And the beauty is you have this great,
Is there a slight panic? Is there a slight panic to realize that this could be a fleeting moment? We have to grab it now. Because if we try to do this again tomorrow, it just won't be there. We've got to nail it now.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it just depends on the bit. I know, I'm glad the Chester session went like it did because we didn't have a week booked. We just had, I'm sure we probably could have got another session if we needed to, but we didn't need it that day. We didn't need it.
Yeah. Hey, one thing I wanted to bring up on Ether is that sometimes some of these bands go a little, not forgotten, they fly below the radar, but what Mark Morales from Sons of Texas did with Black.
Oh, I know.
Good Lord Almighty. I mean, Pearl Jam fans should be like running towards that track.
So that was, this sounds like a story you tell on a podcast, but that was really So it was a really small session. It was me and Josh Wilbur. Josh is like my best friend, and he produces all my stuff too, like my solo stuff and Lamb stuff, right? So
Okay.
we were in his studio, and Mark was out with us, and we were cutting a couple songs with Mark. And I had worked with Mark on a song on Anesthetic as well, and I knew Mark, and we had toured together because he does the whole set in my solo band. He's my singer, right? So he's in there, and we're doing the session, and we knew we were doing Black, and I had cut the guitar stuff the day before, and he comes in, and he made it's an acoustic song, so it's like we're turning off the air conditioners and stuff. We're getting it all quiet in there, and we're all got our cans on, hold tight, and it's like dark in there. And I'm just listening to him do a pass. And I'm gonna tell you, by the end of the first pass, he did like 2, maybe 3 passes of that, top to bottom. And then he came back later and punched the harmonies and stuff. But I'm not gonna say I was crying, but my eyes were. I was like, it was emotional, man. It was like, holy cow, he really channeled, like, that song, that particular song. It's one of those tunes where it like means something to, like, it makes people think of someone, whoever broke their heart when that song was out or whatever. You know what I mean? That was, or whoever, and I never really asked him who or what that energy was coming from or going to, but he had some energy going on that day, man, around that song. He sang the shit out of it.
That's really like a really important moment that you guys shared. Again, I think you said it, not to get super hippy dippy about it, but those moments are what it's all about. And I can't even, taking that shit to the grave, to the reclining chair when you're 80 years old, and you're like, oh yeah, that was tight. Like that memory that you just, it made many of them flash through my head, of my own, and I'm not there. I have no idea. I know Mark very well, but I have no idea what was going on in that moment. But I just pictured it for myself, and it made me feel the exact way that you're saying that you felt.
It's heavy. It was heavy to watch somebody, blow like that, and see the emotion in their face, and see how exhausted he was after 2 takes of that. And nobody's saying anything, and we're not being dramatic for dramatic's sake, because there's nobody watching us. There's no cameras, or, you know what I mean? So it's heavy. And that's, again, we talk about sort of that trust creatively. When you see someone that tuned into what they're doing, and how you feel about your own music, and how much of ourselves, how much of myself I put into my songwriting and my music, and so you see somebody else doing the same thing, and then you're working with the right cats.
Yeah. One of the really interesting tracks too, obviously, that people talk about was obviously the Black Crowes cover with Lizzie Hale. And it's fun. It's interesting to see a female singing a male perspective song about women.
Yeah, that was the idea. That was the idea. So I'm loud and proud Black Crowes fan. I love the Black Crowes. Steve Gorman played on 2 songs on the Anesthetic record, and it was killer having him out. And Mark Ford played a solo on the Mark Lanigan song, and so I'm a massive Black Crowes fan, and so I wanted to cover something, and Talks to Angels is obviously, it's one of their bigger songs. It's a pretty obvious Black Crowes song. It's not like it's a deep cut, but I did think, the idea of having a woman sing it sort of flipped a lot of it just kind of gave it a different energy. And before I knew it was going to be Lizzie, I was just like, I need to get a woman to sing this song, and like somebody like that can really soulfully sing the shit out of it. And if you need a woman to soulfully sing the shit out of a rock song, Lizzie's who she's on your list.
Yeah, she's quite empowered.
She's on your list. Yeah,
that's right.
Well, that record's actually my favorite record of all. The second favorite record, I should say, of all time. Specifically, the song "Seeing Things" is my emotional.
Oh yeah.
I can't put it on and not like leave.
Oh, that Black Crowes album is your second favorite?
Second favorite record of all time. Yeah.
Wow, holy!
Yeah, Shake Your Money.
I love that Lions record they put out. That's like an underground cult classic, right there.
It's like that one doesn't get talked about. Don Was produced that, and but I like for me, it's all about Southern Harmony and Amorica. Although I love all of them, I love all of them, but Southern Harmony is pretty perfect. Man.
Great record.
That's pretty perfect. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Lamb of God, shall we?
All right.
Record. All right. We'll take a little foray into them. Obviously, 2020, the self-titled. I always love it when bands are like deep into their career and then they drop a self-titled record. It's confusing if you're like a newbie into the scene. Like, what record should I check out? This self-titled, and I'm like, yeah, why didn't you check that one out? You keep going backwards, okay? But again, just another amazing record. I think eighth studio record at this point, eighth, ninth.
Yeah, eighth studio, I think it was. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Listen,
think not counting Burn the Priest, which we're not counting. So there you go.
yeah, okay, I
Oh
was gonna
man,
say that's
can I
kind of
talk about it? Because I have a couple cool questions.
Absolutely, it's the same band to me.
Yeah,
I was there for all of it. Yeah.
a,
That's my exact question, except for Dwayne. I wanted to ask you about Dwayne.
Oh yeah.
When we get there.
Okay.
I don't want to interrupt you, Justin. I apologize.
no, I want to hear about. Let's go with Burn Priest. Let's kind of start from there.
I'm a huge fan of your work.
Oh,
from
thank you.
Top to bottom, and I'm 37. I've listened to all of the records since the first time I could put a CD into a CD player. And I read the liner notes, all of that stuff, and I never thought or knew or was that tuned in at that period of time when the first, I guess, Lamb of God proper record came out, right? And you were credited as Dwayne. What was that all about?
So it wasn't really anything super mystic. It was I think. So Dwayne is my middle name.
Oh.
It's my middle name, and yeah, no, it's that simple. And also, yeah, that's my name is Mark Dwayne Morton, and I'm a sober guy now, but I wasn't then, and we used to drink and party a lot, and at a certain point, my sort of this is how I remember it. The reason that part being part of the reasoning is that my mentality, my attitude, sort of my swagger changed a little bit. And Randy used to be like, that's Dwayne's coming out. You know what I mean? I was kind of a loudmouth, rednecky kind of, that dude. And I don't know. I just went with Dwayne. I probably thought I was being coy somehow or something. I don't know. I didn't.
So we thought it was gonna be a cool Dwayne Allman tie in there, but
no, I love Dwayne Allman. But no, it happens. It's my government name.
Oh man, I'm remembering Little Me on a toilet reading the liner notes. I'm like, oh my god.
Well, listen, one thing but you and Will have constructed is just these riffs, and it's so notable. You hear a riff from Lamb of God, boom, right away, and it's like you said, your blues player that plays metal, and that's where that swing is at. You have this swing to your riffs. Slayer pummels. You guys kind of got a swing to. Doesn't matter how quick the tempo is. There's always a little bit of a little swagger in the riffs.
Yeah.
Is that intentional, or is it just your style of playing?
I think it's probably a little of both. I mean, I think it's everything about Lamb of God back to Burn the Priest and really even all this stuff is very like grassroots, very natural. We really just started in a basement in Richmond, Virginia, as an excuse to drink a case of beer and make a bunch of noise,
Sure.
on a Friday night. And that's really, and then that was our ambition in the very, very beginning. And then our mission changed to like, we wanted to play a party, and we did that. And then we wanted to play a bar, and then we wanted to maybe get a show out of town. And then we wanted to do that again. And then maybe we could go and record a few songs. So every step of the way, like the idea that we would have had any designs or any sort of ambition even to get to where we have gotten, in the music industry would have been laughable. And at times it still is, because we're still those guys that were just like, how the hell did that happen? Like, I don't know how it happened. So to steer it back to your question, so there was no, I mean, I grew up listening to Aerosmith and Leonard Skinner and Molly Hatchet and and then Pantera, and just a lot of real cool, groovy, bluesy stuff, like the stuff, even Van Halen, like the stuff that really appealed to me, even before I was playing guitar or thought that I might, was stuff that was heavy, hard rock, but had a blues element to it.
Yeah.
So that I think is just in my DNA, not only as a player but as a music fan. And I think as a band, we always played the music that we always played music that we wanted to hear. In the very early days of the band, I would record on a cassette player our band practices, and I would listen to that shit because I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that's just kind of who we are. And then in time, you start to realize that that's kind of part the character of the band, and you sort of start kind of refining that and polishing it, and then you start trying to see how you can push it and make it evolve. And by that point, you're like, okay, I'm a music guy, and so I'm going to take some risks with this and blah blah blah. But in the beginning, I mean, it's just how you sound. We just wrote what we wanted to hear.
Well, you answer a lot of questions because I'm thinking, okay, it makes sense that basically Mark was influenced by Flirting with Disaster because I just hear that riff in what you play, but played at 78.
Right on. That's cool. I'll take that. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I you know, I had a brother. I still have a brother. He's 8 years older than me, 7 years older, 7 or 8 years older than me, and so in this late 70s. When I was 6 or 7, my brother was 14, 15 years old, and listening to all that great music that a 15-year-old in rural, Southeast Virginia would be listening to, and Molly Hatchet and Leonard Skinner and, all that good stuff, Blackfoot and all that stuff. You know what I mean? So it's like that stuff was seeping through the bedroom walls into my brain.
Isn't it funny? Like you sit there and go, "Wow, listen to Blackfoot." Then you eventually meet Ricky Medlock, and you're like, "Hey, I was so influenced by your playing that basically it's kind of what I do, but just real heavy."
I've never met Ricky.
Really?
But
Okay. Figured that
no,
Skinner guy.
no, we played with them not long ago, a couple of years ago, at this big festival in France, and there are these two stages. Like it's not like a side stage or anything. They just have mirror stages so that they can keep the music going back and forth, right? And it just so happened that Leonard Skinner was playing on the stage next to us right before we went on, and they're late. And there's clocks. I don't know if any of your listeners would know this, but there's clocks on stage. You're supposed to be right on time at these festivals. They'll make you cut songs and stuff. And they're starting Freebird like 5 minutes before our set time, when we're supposed to start. And my tech, Jake, my guitar tech, Jake, he's from Kentucky. He's a good old boy, man. We're starting Freebird, and we're like, putting our hands over our chest. We're like, we're going to be late, boys. This song's going to be about 10 minutes long. And we sat there and listened to all of Freebird, and we started about 6 or 7 minutes late, but I thought that was great. That was a great reason to be late.
That's so cool.
It was cool.
Yeah, I mean, like, you're just like, it's all good. Most situations, like, especially when you're billed over them, right? In a festival setting, you're like, wait, what? But like, how fucking cool is it that you get to carve out some of your set for Skinner?
Nah, it was All Rise for the national anthem, man.
Yeah.
Can you imagine walking up to Gary Rossington afterwards and saying, "You're gonna have to cut 5 minutes out of that solo, man. Run! You have to run like hell to get away."
No, I cannot. No, I cannot imagine it.
Mark, can I ask you about Richmond and being like, I find it so like, I'm familiar with the scene there. Known the Guar dudes, toured with them, played Guarbecue, all that stuff back in the day a few different times. So, with Cannibal Corpse, you guys, Municipal Waste, what was it like kind of like in those first years of like kind of like cultivating what would naturally be what became?
Yeah, I mean, there's such a cool creative element to this town. Has been since I got here. I got here when I was 17, going to college at VCU. I came from a really small town that did have some cool little music stuff going on, but nothing compared to what I was walking into here. And Guar, you mentioned Guar. Those dudes, they just have always been so supportive of the up and coming bands in Richmond. And we were one of those bands, and they were of us, and they took us on our first national tour. When New American Gospel came out in 2000, I guess it was, Guar was there. And as I understand it, the promoters had $100 for us, and Dave Brocky peeled off another 50 or $100 every night to make sure we could get to where we were going and maybe get a hotel room to all sleep on the floor and that kind of thing. And That's the kind of dude Brocky was. And that's the kind of band Guar is. And they just really, really are. They're just those dudes that do it for the right reasons. I mean, it's for the love of the art and for the music and um, for putting on the show. And there's again, you name some other bands, Municipal Waste for sure. They do great, great guys, great band. Um, and it's just even before we broke, there was just always a Veil was huge in town, and I was before Burn the Priest, I was playing in like some punk bands and stuff like that, and we played shows with a Veil, and those guys did great. There's just always been a really cool music scene going on here.
It's funny because it's
anywhere.
downstream.
Yeah.
It's always seen as being downstream from DC, right? So there's almost this kind of like vengeful kind of like, we're going to show DC because we're badass down here in Southern Virginia. We got it going on. But you're right. You've got, Municipal, Iron Reagan, obviously they're cast off from Municipal Waste, Pig Destroyer, even bands like Windhand, there's this kind of doomy, cool.
Yeah.
So Virginia has this very unique sound. And so again, it all comes back that kind of like, I always think about when I think about Virginia, I think about the Appalachians, right? You think about that kind of thing, and you're thinking, man, maybe that's where markets is swing from. I'm always trying to figure out your sound.
I don't know, man. I think it's just like I said, it was just somewhere in that blackberry patch in James City County. I got a little bit of swagger in my riff.
There you go. Hey, one thing that was super entertaining, if there's anything entertaining about COVID, which is basically the Lamb of God quarantine series. When you guys would what you guys were peeling off during those sessions was just a staggering. And it was like clockwork. I couldn't believe how tight it was.
Well, we had to do something, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We had to do something. No, those were cool. Some cool stuff came out of that for sure. I mean, I think it was important to do, and it's certainly not unique to us, but I think it was important for bands to find some kind of way to feel like a band and feel like you're engaging your fans, and just do something rather than sit around and complain. So those were a cool chance to do that.
Well, we're now in a different world. Hopefully we're kind of slowly opening up, and you guys have a big tour with co-headlining with Megadeth and Trivium and In Flames. So it's just like this metal tour of the year kind of thing. How'd that all come together? Or is this, I mean, if you could tell people about what's going on with that tour and what people can expect?
Yeah, I mean, it was, going to be summer of 2020, and obviously the lockdown happened, the COVID stuff happened, and that was a real drag because, certainly for a lot of reasons bigger than missing a metal tour, but we were pretty jacked up about that. It's a big bill, and it's an exciting bill, and it's a great bill for heavy metal in general. Like, it just brings a bunch of great bands together in big places. So the fact that that's still managed to stick together and can actually happen now is a thrill. It's exciting, and it feels good to be able to realistically, say we're doing this. How'd it come together? I mean, I think, there's teams of people smarter and probably better paid than me that, dream up these kind of things. I'm all for it, man. I mean, that's a dream bill for a metal fan for sure.
I was gonna say, it's very interesting because you have In Flames as kind of the, I hate to use the word opener with In Flames because they are iconic, legendary.
Absolutely,
they're doing 40,000 in Sweden. Let's not kid ourselves. But it's interesting to see them over on the shores here, and it's such a unique perspective though because you do have metal fans, so it's an easy lead in for for them to, hey, we don't have to win this audience over. They're already with us.
If you got if Flames opening your show, you got a hell of a show happening there.
You're doing pretty good. Hey, listen, we have a question for one of the ShipRockers, if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all.
And this is a question that I think we all kind of want to know. The question's from Joe Birch. He wants to know, what's it going to be like if you guys start off and you don't see anyone moshing?
Well, what's it going to be like? I mean, I don't know. It's probably, I don't know. Is it hard to mosh on a boat?
No, I'm talking about your tour. No, boat. The boat's its own
Oh,
thing,
I
man.
thought we were talking about the boat. Okay.
No. We will definitely get to that. But we
Oh,
want to
okay.
know. I'm sorry, your tour.
Okay, on the tour, what's it going to be like?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I guess it'll be kind of throwback. There have definitely been some shows before. Metallica comes to mind. We toured with Metallica on 3 different continents, and they were doing that show where we're playing arenas, but it's in the middle of the arena, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like in the round. So that didn't lend itself to moshing anyway. It lent itself to a lot of people sort of like kind of just watching. And then the fact that we were opening for Metallica, when you open for Metallica, this may be something Joe wants to consider when if he ever plans on opening for Metallica. Nobody's there to see you. Nobody. Like, they're in the building. They're in the building, but they're not there to see you. They're there to see Metallica, right? So we played plenty of shows opening for Metallica, which we were thrilled to do, and
sure.
would jump at the chance to do again. I assure you. But we played plenty of shows there where we started and nobody moshed.
Yeah, I guarantee you, Mark, that they may have not come there for you, but they left knowing who you were.
I think we made some fans. I do think we made some fans, and it was
Absolutely.
a wonderful opportunity. I'm making light of it, but that was a big step for us, and really awesome of those guys. And we made some good friends on those tours.
Yeah.
Plus, it like shapes your insides as a band, like the DNA of who you guys are when like you're just up there. And you know that nobody gives a fuck, and you have to do what you can do to make sure that somebody at least gives a fuck. And there's nothing worse than getting a boo. I don't know if you've ever been in your life booed on stage or had something thrown at you. It's happened to me twice.
Definitely had some thrown at me. Definitely had some thrown.
You have not in a cool way, like a shitty thing get thrown at you.
Yeah,
a full bottle of beer without the fucking cap taken off.
Yeah. I had a solo cut. One time we were opening for Slayer, and Slayer audiences are notoriously like not nice, but we've had great luck for, because of the match pairing of the bands, like Slayer fans have always from the jump been really receptive to Lamb. And that's cool because those are hardcore diehard fans, right? But not always. At one time I remember, no one's gonna believe this, but I swear it's true. We're playing this arena. And I'm on stage left, right? So if you're in the crowd, you're looking at me. I'm on the right hand side, and it's an arena. So there's like the floor, and then there's another whole layer of balcony. And I'm playing, I'm rocking out or whatever. But you kind of look around, keep your wits about you, and I see this red cup, like a solo cup, like flipping in like doing what would you call it? It's just flipping. It's doing like cartwheels
360
in the air. Yeah.
It's got your name written all over it.
And damn if the thing doesn't land right in the middle of my chest, and it's full of beer. How it stayed half full of beer, flipping through the air and splattered all over my chest. And I was just like, I took my hands off the guitar. We're in the middle of the song. I started laughing. I was like, how the hell did that happen?
Well, good thing those Jacksons are waterproof.
Whoever did that was just like, oh yeah.
Yeah, they had to be like high five and everybody around it. It was a bullseye.
And your tech is figuring out who was sitting where and where it damn well came from.
I mean, honestly, I walked away from that being really grateful that it was beer.
Yeah, right. Could have a cup of piss.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been worse.
Well, hey guys, if you're joining us here on ShipRocked, welcome. Listen, we talked earlier during the podcast segment of this, and we were talking about the solo work that Mark had done with Ether and Anesthetic, and we've had plenty of ShipRockers who've appeared in the albums. So go check those out, Anesthetic and Ether. Ether's kind of more of a, I guess, would you want a bluesy acoustic? Some really great cover songs.
It's got a couple covers, and a little more acoustic bass, and Anesthetic's a little more full band sound and full-fledged kind of hard rock.
If you just kind of want to work your way in, Anesthetic's a good thing because there's still kind of your sound there, but you definitely branch out in this more of rock kind of feel. And obviously, guys, if you guys haven't picked it up yet, pick up the Lamb of God self-titled from 2020. That will definitely knock your socks off. Chad, Mark, we do this thing called Walk the Plank, and we ask a couple of questions of you, just kind of random questions. We want your deep philosophical answers, if you could, please, to these questions. And usually don't revolve around music. Sometimes they might, but it's just something to have a little fun with.
All right, I'm in.
The way that we usually pace it is like it's him. I'll ask one, then Justin will ask one, and then we kind of like pull one from a fan generated pool, and then ask you that. So it'll be just 3 quick questions. I'll start, and my question for you is, what was it that you got in trouble for the most when you were younger, like on the come up?
In trouble. I was actually I really was a pretty well behaved kid. I was just I really was, man. Like I was a real nerd. I sucked at sports. I was just kind of like the chubby geeky kid that wasn't couldn't hit a baseball and just too short for football, and I sucked at skateboarding. Um, so I don't know. I was just kind of a quiet, nerdy kid, and then I found guitar. So what did I get in trouble for? I got busted drinking a couple times and that kind of thing. Like drink, cops, small town, bust you drinking beer and that kind of thing. But I wasn't really, I wasn't really a trouble kid, man.
Interesting.
Yeah,
A good wholesome Mark Morton.
yeah. I was pretty kept it pretty together. You know, made up for that a little bit later in life, but as a kid,
Dwayne.
yeah, I caught up in my 20s.
Well, let me ask Mark a question then. Mark, if you weren't playing guitar, what do you think you'd be pursuing as your career in life?
Well, that's it's probably one of a couple things. So I did go to college and I graduated with a bachelor's degree in political science. I got minors at the same time in international relations and African American studies, and I went on to graduate school for I was pursuing a master's degree in international relations. I dropped out of graduate school. I was doing very well, but I dropped out because um, I felt like I wasn't 100% immersed. I felt like by the time I get in graduate school and I'm getting a master's degree, I should be living and breathing this stuff. And I was really way more focused on music. So at the time, I was like, maybe I'll come back to this um, academia kind of thing, but I'm going to make a real solid run at just trying to do something with music because that seems to be what's really kind of pulling me like gravity.
Yeah.
So it's possible that my goal at that time with school was that I wanted to be a political science professor. So I might have been that had I not pursued music. Also, I spent a fair amount of time doing like completely left turn here, doing slate and copper roofing on some of the really old. There's a lot of old buildings around here that have like very ornate, very historically correct slate and copper roofing. And I got lucky enough to work with some guys that do beautiful stuff around that trade. So I got pretty decent at that and was making decent money doing that. That's what I was doing when Lamb got signed and when it started becoming the kind of thing where we were going out on tour for a few weeks and coming back, and I was actually had money to pay my bills and to put some away and that kind of thing. So I guess I would either be a college professor or a roofer.
I was going to say, well, the thing about touring is you have international relations all over the world now.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
Yeah,
I was going to say, you imagine Mark Morton, U.S. diplomat to Czechoslovakia for the U.S. That would have been great. That would have been a great title. Listen, I want to get to 2 questions real quick from and Chad, we'll get one more walk the plank, but I'm going to grab these before
I think that's
anything.
Great. Let the fans go.
Jen Wallerman wants to know, and I had a question, but I didn't want to refer it to music. Out of all the riffs you've done, which one really sticks out? I know every week it probably changes, but what riff this week sticks out for you at the one you've written?
Yeah, that's always a tough question.
Sure.
There are some key songs that I really do feel like are special ones, and of the ones that I've sort of um, kind of directed or really sort of led the way with in terms of the creative process. I think Memento Mori from the most recent album I think is a really special song. I love that one. I think Walk With Me in Hell has kind of stood the test of time as being a really awesome song, really on a lot of levels. And Cross Off is so special to me too. Just the way from the solo stuff, the way that turned out, and they've had that experience with Chester. So those are three pretty big songs for me in terms of like the career discography.
Those are all my favorites too. So,
well, I
right.
can't get checkmate out of my head. And Chris Souza want to know, you guys going to be putting any Burn the Priest tracks into the new set?
I don't know. That's a good question. I hadn't really thought of that. We have done it before. It's been a while. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't rule it out. The thing with these sets though is it's tricky. If we do, it'll probably be on a full-fledged like headlining tour when we can stretch out and play an hour and a half.
Sure.
On these more festival style shows, we tend to be a little constricted in terms of like how long we could play. And there's so many Lamb songs at this point, 8-9 records in that people expect to hear, that our our elasticity with the set list becomes tighter and tighter, because now we have to play 512, we have to play Laid to Rest, we have to play Redneck, we have to play Walk With Me in Hell, we have to play Ruin, we have, you know what I mean? So like the list, there's if you got an hour and 10 minutes to play, half the set list is songs that are pretty much mandatory.
Isn't it funny? Sometimes the success can kind of box you into a corner.
Hey man, these are good
Cadillac
great
stuff,
Cadillac problems right here.
Right. Right. Well, real quick, we want to ask about the cruise. You're going to be doing some solo sets for us. Will you be bringing Mark from Sons of Texas on the boat to do those with you?
That is the plan. Yep.
Fantastic. You guys heard it here first. Mark Morales from Sons of Texas. You guys are always asking about him. Well, guess what? He's going to come on in 2022, and they're going to do some special shows, him and Mark, and hopefully some guests.
Yeah, hope so. It's a little
room
bit
for flexibility on the cruise.
There is. It's going to be fun. I mean, Lamb is going to do our thing, and then for my appearances for the solo side, it's just going to be really low key and fun, man. We're going to do some covers and hopefully link up with some of the other folks. Don't have anything worked out yet, but I'm just loosely thinking about maybe trying to reach out to some of the folks that are going to be there and maybe do something fun.
I got to tell you from past experience, two instances. One was Joey Belladonna doing his Journey set acoustically. Was
wow,
hit.
that's cool.
Because we do it in the atrium, it's beautiful. And then Bumblefoot with Jeff Tate doing some Queensryche stuff like Silent Lucidity. It's just like it's kind of like you're at midnight and you're like, why is the skin on the back of my neck? Why is the hair up? This is crazy. So we're looking forward to that, guys. Mark, obviously, thank you guys out there. This episode will be dropping this Monday, Memorial Day. So is it Memorial Day? Yeah, the 31st. Yeah, it is. So we will be dropping this full episode on wherever you get your podcast. We'll give you a brief on the weekend about that. Mark, thank you so much.
Hey man, my pleasure.
Fantastic, man.
You guys made it easy, man. Easy to sit and kick it with you guys about music.
Guys, check out Mark's solo work. We've talked about. Get that wherever you basically can get music. If you want to go buy brick and mortar, go buy the vinyl. Always buy the vinyl. Yes. Yeah. It's sexy.
Back that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then obviously check them out when they go out with Megadeth, Trivium, and In Flames this fall, right? Fall or summer, fall?
Starts in August. Late August.
Summer and fall. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah. Listen, congratulations on everything. Congratulations on everyone getting back to work and getting back on the road and do what you guys do.
Yeah,
and we couldn't be more stoked, as Al, before we went on, said, the fact that you guys are on board and kind of helping us anchor this thing is amazing. And the fans, they didn't see that. We always do this. Hey, who do you think is going to be headlining? And then when we dropped your name, it was like, no one was expecting that. And it blew my mind.
There's so much excitement. Seriously, man.
Yeah.
So that's great, man. We're stoked to be a part of it. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. Fantastic. Anyway, everyone, thank you for joining us tonight. Remember, Monday it drops, so you can listen to the whole thing. Please go and check it out. The first 30, 40 minutes, really great stuff with Mark. So thank you again. See you guys later. Mark, thanks, brother.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me. Take care.
You bet.
Congratulations.
All right. Thanks, man.